Ladies and gents, welcome back to another video. In front of us here is a little package, and inside of it is an iPod Touch. This is going to be an iPod Touch first gen. It's supposed to be running iOS 1 point something something, I forget exactly, but iOS 1 nonetheless. I don't think I've ever unboxed one on iOS 1. I can't quite remember, but let's get this thing opened up, see what kind of condition it's in, and find out if we have ourselves an iPod Touch first gen on the first generation of iOS. And here it is. It's actually already on. Must have clicked the home or power button there by accident. Here's our device. Definitely a first gen iPod. These have a very distinct shape. This is an 8GB model. You can kind of see that down there through the scratches. Unfortunately, it is engraved and the back is pretty scratched up. Corners are in somewhat of a rough condition as well. You can see a big chunks taken out of that one. And well, overall, it's in pretty rough shape. Luckily for us, no cracks on the display. Let's see how well that cleans up here. I'm sure there's going to be some scratches. And yeah, there are some scratches. Nothing too bad, but it looks pretty decent from the front. So we'll go ahead and power this on and slide to unlock. And right away, we are inside of the iTunes store, it looks like there. So we'll go ahead and exit out of that. Here is our home screen. This does look like iOS 1. We have the old iTunes logo with the download symbol instead of the music icon. Absent is the App Store, and absent is Spotlight Search. There is nothing you can do here on the home screen, although I do think you can move apps around. You can. That's actually pretty laggy. I don't know if that's going to show up on camera, but certainly not 60 frames per second, which this display is capable of outputting. We do have the old calculator icon. Look at that. They changed that pretty early on. There's no landscape mode on this iOS 1 calculator. So that's pretty interesting. But let's head into settings here and see which version we have exactly. 1.1.5. So that's a pretty early version. I forget off the top of my head what the first version that shipped with the iPod Touch was. I'll leave that right there so you guys can see. But this is pretty cool to get, of course. It actually looks like this thing is filled up. It's got almost 900 songs. We'll head into music and see just what songs we have here. Here is our cover flow, which shows the album covers on songs downloaded from iTunes. So a good mix here of iTunes music as well as looks like CDs that have been added to the device later on. Pretty good spread of music. Looks like mostly some hip hop and maybe a little bit of pop tunes in there as well. Actually not bad. Some stuff that I used to listen to and probably still do. There you have it for the music. And that's what this device was centered around. Of course, this is the first iPod Touch. And when this released, it was marketed as a music player that you could also browse the web, check email, view stocks, and photos. You could do music videos. YouTube was on here, Maps was on here, but there was no App Store. That was introduced in iOS 2, and this iPod, of course, would get the iOS 2 update and it would get iOS 3. But this is a really, really basic iPod. Not much you can do for it. Let me go ahead and actually, we're going to show off settings here because there's not much in here. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the iOS 1 settings app, but it is pretty basic and things are in very different locations than they are even on iOS 3 and 4. They really changed things around quite a lot in the first few generations of iOS. There's our brightness slider. We'll see how bright that gets. That's actually pretty good. We'll go ahead and adjust that for the camera. VPN is right here front and center. Apple kind of took that away and hid it deeper into settings later on, but in iOS 1, front and center there for VPN. Let me go ahead and get connected here to my Wi-Fi, and then we're going to see what works and what doesn't. All right, we are getting connected. Let's see if that works. And it does. We've got our Wi-Fi icon up there. We'll head into the iTunes store. I don't think that's going to work. Although, is that where the iPod was when it first turned on? Can't quite remember. But so we've got a featured tab, top 10s, search, and downloads. So that is all we get here on the first gen iPod Touch on iOS 1. Let's see if stocks works. I don't think it does. Oh wait, does stocks work? Is that the current price? I don't think it is. What's the current price of Apple's stock?
Apple was up 1.66% yesterday, trading at $189.98.
So this is pretty old. I'm surprised it even loaded that at all. That is a bit of a surprise to me. So stocks, I guess, is working. Not really. We'll see if Maps is going to work here. I don't know if anything's going to load. Let's type in New York. Go ahead and pop into landscape mode if it lets us do that. Don't think it is. And it looks like this is not going to load. That is unfortunate. I thought the Maps application was working on all the old versions of iOS, but I guess not. Next up, let's see if Safari works on iOS 1. So what do we got loading here? Not really sure, but I'm going to open a new tab and we're going to head into Apple. Well, you get two search bars here. We'll do apple.com. There used to be keyboard clicks. I'll see if I can find that here in just a minute. Okay, so that actually loaded pretty quick. Let's see if the image tab works or if everything is going to be all misplaced. Okay, so that does actually work decently well. Here is the iPhone 12. So Safari is actually fairly snappy. Let's see what happens when we try to load Apple's website, and I don't think that's going to work. No, that's unfortunate. But back to those keyboard clicks. So the iPod Touch first gen does not have a built-in speaker, but it does have a clicker where if you went through the scroll wheel, it made like a clicking noise. The iPod has one of those. Let's see what that sounds like. So there you go. It's also got a unique sound when you connect it to power. So let me go ahead and get a cable to do that. So if we plug in here, it should make a unique sound. Maybe. Don't know why that's not working. Let me try a different power source. Okay, what do we got going on here? Is this not going to charge through USB? Maybe not. Strange. I do know the first gen iPod is the only iPod Touch which does support FireWire. So this is the last device, I think, that Apple sold. This and the, no, I take that back. The iPod Classic had FireWire all the way through. But this is the first and only iPod Touch to get FireWire, which is a more powerful way of charging. And I bet if I plugged it into FireWire, it would charge. For some reason, this is just not working here over our USB connection. So you guys aren't going to get to experience that iOS 1, or sorry, the iPod Touch first gen charging sound, but it does get a lock and unlock sound. Just a little click, just like that. Very subtle. But another thing you'll notice is the iPod Touch first gen does not have volume buttons. So every other iPod Touch does have volume buttons over here on the left side. First gen does not. If you wanted to adjust the volume, you had to head into the music app or double tap the home button, and you got this very primitive version of Control Center, which would let you adjust the volume there. And before we go, let's head into settings and check out those iOS 1 wallpapers. Wallpapers actually kind of buried inside of settings in general. And here they are, very similar to the iOS 3 wallpapers. We've got the iPod Touch exclusives there. And I think the butterfly is a pretty clean one. Looks very nice on the iPod Touch. Of course, there's no home screen wallpaper, only a lock screen wallpaper, just like that. So there you go. That's been a look at an iPod Touch first gen running iOS 1 in 2024. Pretty cool to find one of these devices. They're getting more and more difficult to find. And this is a very classic iPod design. Beautiful device. All right, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I look forward to seeing you in another one of my videos.